For the thousands of Americans and Afghans still trying to get out of Kabul, the red tape is making an already bad situation worse. And now we know that no military flights have been able to take off for hours, according to Courtney Kuby's reporting. So why wasn't the Biden administration better prepared to move faster, to get people out as U.S. forces were withdrawing? On July 13th, 24 diplomats at the U.S. Embassy in Kabul warned about the possibility of a Taliban takeover. They sent a dissent cable, that's a very special form of communication, to the Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, urging the State Department to start airlifting people out then. A source familiar with the situation confirms to NBC News. Joining me now is Congressman Jimmy Panetta, who served in Afghanistan as an intelligence officer in the U.S. Navy Reserve. Congressman, thanks so much for being with us. This dissent communication, you know how important that is. It goes directly to the secretary, has to be read at the very highest levels. And it is a rare communication from diplomats in the field, very privileged, and really it's sacred within the State Department culture that they have that ability to communicate, especially in an emergency. And it's not clear what was done. The State Department says they started cutting red tape, but you guys authorized the cutting of red tape with a defense supplemental appropriation back in July.
Yes. First of all, thanks for having me, Andrea. And these are definitely going to be questions that we're going to be asking in our capacity in the United States Congress, especially when it comes to oversight in the hearings that we've already demanded in the Congress and in the Senate, on the Foreign Affairs Committee, on the Armed Services Committee. Now, look, we also understand that, you hope that these types of cables are read, are taken into account. But these types of decisions is a balancing act between politics and policy. We're going to find out exactly what outweighed what in our determination coming up here in the type of hearings we're demanding at this point.
What are your concerns? And I should ask first, what are you hearing from people who may have been translators for you or drivers, Afghan colleagues, about what they're experiencing and trying to get out?
Yeah, in my discussions in the group you mentioned, the 4-country caucus, a group of veterans who obviously served in the military, now serve in Congress, equal number of Democrats and Republicans. Our concern is making sure we leave no one behind. Obviously, that starts with Americans and, of course, the people who we promised, gave them promises to work with us, trusted our lives with them, the interpreters, make sure that we uphold those promises, uphold our obligation to them to get them and their family members out of that country. And so we're going to be sending a letter to the president, to the administration, making sure that we uphold our obligations and leave nobody behind. Now, in regards to those on the ground, obviously we're hearing from a number of constituents who have family members there who are SIV recipients, the special immigrant visa recipients, and their family members. And we're trying to do everything we can to make sure the administration is accountable to them and to us. It's very difficult when they only give us one email address to go to in order to provide them the information about the people on the ground. It's very difficult. It's very frustrating. But at this point, we need to make sure that that process is working. Unfortunately, as you're hearing, there are no flights that are leaving in the last few hours. But on top of that, as the Admiral said in your previous segment, how are we getting these people to the airport? Where are the plans for this? And these are all questions that need to be answered.
Well, the Secretary of Defense said just yesterday, I believe, that we can't do that. We don't have the capacity to get them to the airport from inside Kabul, and we don't have the capacity to go out in the country to get them to the capital. They can't get past Taliban checkpoints. State Department warned them that it's very, very dangerous last night, but still told them, get to the airport. They no longer are saying shelter in place. So it's so many mixed messages. But let me roll back for just a moment. You said there's only one email for you and all your colleagues to try to reach.
That's correct.
One email, one channel to get for all of these people that we're trying to get out.
That's correct. Early on, we were provided with an email address to the State Department to say, contact this email. And let me tell you, I've contacted senators, I've contacted Congress members at all levels of seniority. They all received that one email. Now, you'd like to think it'd be about equality, but I believe this is about inadequacy right now. And therefore, we're continuing to work all angles. And I'm glad to say we actually got one family out of Afghanistan within the last few days. They're now in Qatar. But that's not good enough. We need to work to make sure we get all of them out of there and make sure that our State Department and this administration, like I said, lives up to that moral responsibility that they have. And so we're going to continue to push the administration to do that. We have to.
Now, the president, in his remarks Monday, blamed the Afghan security forces for caving in and, of course, the government for fleeing. What's your feeling about the Afghan forces and whether or not they were good fighters, the reasons for them giving up, switching sides?
Look, it's easy to reduce the last 2 decades to 1 week based on the horrifying pictures that we're seeing coming out of Afghanistan. But we have to be reminded that there were close to 75,000 Afghan military members that gave their lives. So there was some fight in them. Obviously, we provided them the capacity to do that. But once we left and once they saw other parts of their country falling, that's when they basically walked away. They disappeared, their government disappeared, their president disappeared. And these are all things that we would have loved to have information about. Obviously, you talked about that intelligence cable. But more importantly, we have to know what were the plans in place to deal with this type of contingency. Look, we had a plan to withdraw. And you know that when it comes to withdrawing troops, speed is safety. And they lived up to that. But what were the plans in place for when the Afghan military and Afghan government went away? Where were our plans? Where was our diplomatic plan? Where was our military plan? Where was our economic plan? Where was our humanitarian plan? Those are all questions that we're going to be asking, and they need to be answered.
Congressman Jimmy Panetta from the Central Valley of California, thank you so very much.